Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Spiced In, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, and today I'm going to be flying you through all of we have in the galaxy to talk about. It's a pretty good week for Star Wars this week. We have the third chapter of The Mandalorian. I have finished the novel Resistance Reborn. I've got a little bit more time in on Jedi Fallen Order, but not as much as I'd like to. No spoilers, but for those in the know, I am on the second main planet after your starting area. So hopefully I can get more time in on that. I just have too much going on in my life to try and fit it all in. So today we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian Chapter 3 and the Resistance Reborn novel. So we're going to just start right with The Mandalorian and jump right in with that. So again, this is full spoilers. If you have not seen The Mandalorian Chapter 3, pause this episode, go over, listen to it, and come right back and we'll get talking. So here we go. So with the start of Chapter 3, we're flying back in to our guild outpost with our bounty. My girlfriend, who I'm pretty sure is my only listener right now, wants me to call him Yeedle, like a Lidl Yoda. But I've also seen people call him the Yodeling. But we're flying back into our planet to return the bounty. Grief cargo comes up on the hologram telling us about where to drop him off, and we have a little bit of an attachment moment. Baby Yoda tries to steal the shifter knob from his ship, so he throws him back in the crib and they get landing. So, and when they land, I notice we have in the back, there's a quad jumper. If you remember from episode 7 when they're trying to escape Jakku and a ship blows up and they're like, oh, we'll go take that one, and the other one's the Falcon. Well, the ship that blew up is in the background as they're landing, and apparently it was also in episode 1 according to Wikipedia, so I thought that was kind of cool. Something like we're walking through the marketplace going to turn in the bounty directly to the Imperial remnant sort of group, and something that's really striking to me is just the expressiveness of the Yoda. The baby Yoda. From what I've heard, I saw that a lot of it is practical effects, which I think is just crazy. But it's not just, you got the ear movements, you got the little scrunching of the faces and the eyes, and the fact that they're all able to do that and make it look, just adorable is incredible. We get in and we give the bounty to the Imperials, and he was asking our client how many fobs he gave out just because of all the bounty hunters he ran on the way, and they gave out a lot. They're trying to secure the package, and they knew it was going to be a tough ask. So he pulls out his bounty, which is all of that Beskar he promised, and it's in an ice cream container. During the Bespin scenes in episode 5, when the Imperials are kind of storming in, there's a dude that's running in the background with an old model of an ice cream maker, and that they brought that prop back for the Beskar, so a little bit of a nod to the fans there. And Armando asks what our plans for the child are, and they're like, that's against guild code. You bring it here and you forget, so go home. You have more than enough money, or more than enough of a prize. And the client makes an offhand comment. He's like, finding Mandos is harder than finding the steel nowadays, which is a pretty bad burn against him. He Beskar is not common, so it's basically saying it's hard to find this steel, but all of you guys are dead, so it's even harder to find a good Mandalorian to give it to. So not so subtle jab there. But we take our haul, we bring it back to the armor, and we're seeing a lot more of the Mandalorians that were kind of in the shadows in the background of the previous episodes. But we deliver it to the armor, and everyone kind of comes in to see this huge haul of Beskar and see what's going on. But the armor says that we can get a full cuirass, so basically a chest plate for the Mando. And a lot of our other friends around aren't so happy because this is obviously Imperial steel. This is steel that the Imperials had taken from the Mandalorians, and there's a whole lot of resentment based on the purge that happened against the Mandalorians as instigated by the Empire. So a lot of people are really mad about him, and we get a little bit of a fight going on. There's a lot of people getting mad, and we have a little bit of a fight going on. But our armor breaks it up and asks them. It's really cool. It reinforces the whole no one takes our helmet off. That's part of our code. And then they all chant, "This is the way." So I guess goodbye, I have spoken. Hello, this is the way is the biggest quotable from The Mandalorian already. and they ask about how his chest plate got damaged, and it was the Mudhorn that attacked us in the last episode. And they're talking about giving him a signet because apparently if you defeat an enemy, a big worthy enemy, and get that as your signet. But he said it was an unnoble kill because Yeatle helped him. I'm going to start calling it Yeatle on accident, and I didn't even actually want to do it. Baby Yoda helped him. We're going with Baby Yoda for now until we have something better. I don't care. So since he helped him, it's not a noble kill, and he can't get that signet. Which I'm wondering if it's basically, it seems like you kill a creature because you have the Fets that had the Mythosaur. I guess they called him Mythosaur potentially at one point for the signet. I'm going to go super out there with the predictions, say maybe he has to sacrifice Baby Yoda at one point, and that becomes his signet. That'd be kind of nuts. Probably not. That's kind of out there, but we'll see. But instead of a signet, he's going to get whistling birds, which are little weapons we'll see later, and they're apparently very rare, and they're crafted out of the Beskar. I counted up, and he has 12 of those, so we'll see how he uses them later. But something I kind of I was thinking about is his attachment to children. He made sure that the foundlings get some more Beskar, and he's obviously cares about Baby Yoda so much. I think probably a lot of this is coming from his experience as a child being a refugee. And, he had such a rough time as a child. He wants to try and make sure that he has that soft spot for children because he wants to try and make sure they have the best opportunities possible. At least that's how I read it. But as his chest plate's being crafted, we have another flashback to his time in the Clone Wars. And it's the same exact flashback, just fleshed out with some more detail. I'm wondering if every time he visits our fellow Mandalorians, if we're going to get another flashback, because that's how it's been so far. We see some more detail. We see more of the B2 droids. We see a droid gunship coming overhead, and one of the B2s shoots his family and opens this little cellar door to find him there, and that's when our dream cuts out. So obviously he's alive, unless that's a fake out and that's not actually him, which is possible. So you have to imagine that a Mandalorian comes out and probably kills the droid and saves him or something like that. And that's how he gets adopted into this family. So at this point, we head back to the cantina with all the other bounty hunters and Greef Karga. And Greef he is talking our boy up. He's basically just shouting out for everyone to hear how amazing this guy is and how everyone else had a shot. Every single person in the cantina had a bounty tracker or a fob for this bounty, and none of them can do it but him. So he's just kind of gassing him up and going crazy about it. And it's like, you know what, you get whatever you want. You can take a break. You should chill. I got some, basically says he's got some Twi'lek hookers in the back if you want to go back there. But he's like, nope, I just want a job. That's all I want to do. I just want a job. So he takes a bounty for a Mon Calamari. He said it was like a son of a nobleman on the ocean dunes of Karnak. But then Mandalorian's pretty upset about the whole situation with the bounty and is asking, what's going to happen to it. And again, we're told that that's not how this works. You did the bounty, forget about it. And then Greef Karga tells him he's like, hey, the Empire's dead, but if you have so much trouble with this, go to the core, report it to the New Republic. And it's like, dude, that's a joke. Come on, what are you talking about? So, if you read Bloodlines, you'll know that the New Republic is kind of bureaucratic and incompetent. So we just have another reinforcement of that here. So at this point, we're heading back to the ship, about to boost out of there and go to get our next bounty. And we see the little missing shifter knob on the dash, and that kind of reminds us of Baby Yoda. So we power down, the guilt overcomes us, and we have to go get it. So he goes back and wanders and finds the crib in a dumpster out in the back alley. So he breaches in, sets a charge on the wall, goes in, starts just taking everyone out. And we finally see him successfully use his flamethrower for the first time, I believe. We had once with the Blurgs, once with the Mudhorn, and now he finally takes out a Stormtrooper with it. So I guess third time's a charm, really. But he goes in and sees the scientist is experimenting on him and taking we don't really get a good idea of what's going on, but he's taking some readings of the Baby Yoda and says he's the only reason that's even alive. But Mando takes him and starts trying to run out and gets confronted by 4 Stormtroopers out in this big open area, or open room, which again, I'm loving all the callbacks to previous episodes. Remember in the first episode, they come in with a little kind of Mexican standoff moment. He's like, we've got you 4-1. I like those odds. So we see that 4-1 odds play out right here. And what does he do? He kind of sets Baby Yoda down and pops out the whistling birds and takes them all out. And they're kind of remind me of the arrow that Yondu has in Guardians of the Galaxy. But I counted, And it's really hard to tell, but it looks like he fires off 5 to 6 to take out 4 people. So he has either 6 or 7 of those left. So he can basically take out 4 to 5, probably more people, and that's it. But we head out into the marketplace, and we're trying to head back to the ship and get out of here. And that's when everyone's fobs in the bar start going off. And they know that something's up, and that super valuable bounty is out on the loose again. So he gets confronted by all the bounty hunters and Grief Karga out in the marketplace. He goes over to the speeder that's piloted by another astromech droid and quickly hops on and starts shooting people. And he points the gun at the droids like, dude, start driving. So it's another like big kind of Western moment with like, a wagon trying to do that. But he's firing through everyone, shooting everyone as he's trying to get to a ship. And then Grief Karga takes one shot and kills the droid. So he's stranded. He takes out his disruptor and starts disintegrating a few people for good measure, which it's important to note that even though we're a bounty hunter and Mando's not the most ethical person in the world, that disruptor rifles are technically illegal. Like, you're really not supposed to have them. But he takes out a few people, but he's been pinned down, and it's looking like it's finally, he's finally done for. And that's when Baby Yoda's basically Deus Ex Machina. Once Baby Yoda does something, everything's going to be okay because he coos, according to the subtitles. And that's when all the Mandalorians who we saw earlier start coming in on their jetpacks and just dispatching everyone. They are a force to be reckoned with, as they're just taking everyone out left and right, and it's not even a competition. And our big guy that got in a fight with Mando earlier comes in with a sick machine or minigun attached to a jetpack, and he's like, "Hey," and Mando's like, "Hey, we're gonna have to relocate the Cabra." He's like, "Dude, don't worry, this is the way." And it's like, "This is the way," and we leave. And as we're getting on the ship, Grief Karga pops down. He had run away earlier in the fight, and he pops down, and he's like, "Give it to me." Pulls a gun on him. Mando uses his grappling hook to set off some steam and then steps back and shoots him. And Grief Karga falls off the ship and we fly away. Not too fast, because Karga got some Beskar ingots earlier in the episode for the Mando cashing in on the bounty. And he had them in his breast pocket, which stopped the blaster shot. And if you actually listen, when he gets hit with the shot, instead of just a normal blaster sound effect, you hear like a metallic clink from it hitting it. So it's a good attention to detail again there. I'm really loving how much they're putting into this show. And it kind of reminds me of like a Teddy Roosevelt, I believe it was Teddy Roosevelt got shot during a speech and it hit him in the glasses. He had like a spectacles case in his breast pocket. So it stopped the shot and he finished the speech. Kind of reminds me of that. And apparently I saw some other people saying that it's another Western trope. But as we're flying away, we see another Mandalorian come up on his jetpack and give like a flying salute, which reminds me of like one of those like stereotypical Superman saves the airplane like kind of moments. And the Mando comments like, "I gotta get me one of those," which, I was thinking that earlier. How about, obviously Boba Fett and Jango Fett had the jetpack, and then we see all the other Mandalorians come in with their own jetpacks, but he doesn't have one. So I don't know if that's something we're going to just kind of get later in the series, or if he has a reason where he doesn't have one specifically. And at that point, we're just flying away, and we give Baby Yoda the little shifter knob he had earlier, and it's the end of the episode. So at this point, kind of got to wonder what's going to come next. We have Chapter 4, and after Chapter 4, we'll be halfway through. So I don't know, will he go after his Mon Calamari bounty? Does he have a place with the Guild anywhere else in the galaxy after he's betrayed them here? When are we going to see IG-11 come back? So we know that's going to happen. Are we going to go back to our Queel, our Ugnaught friend? Or are we going to have a very Mandalorian-heavy episode where they're trying to reestablish themselves somewhere else? It's kind of hard to tell. It's just kind of very open-ended right now. So we'll have to see where we go next. But that is the end of our Episode 3 discussion, which brings us to Star Wars Resistance Reborn. For those of you who don't know, this is a novel that takes place before Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and kind of helps basically transition us from The Last Jedi and set the stage for what's coming next. If you haven't read the book and you're not planning on it, I think you're fine. I think you're fine to listen to what I got for this. if you're trying to really be spoiler free and go in blind to Rise of Skywalker, I can get why you wouldn't want to listen to it. But all this is doing is really setting the stage. I don't think you're going to have too much spoiled for you, really. There's not a whole lot that happens here. With no further ado, here comes our Resistance Reborn discussion. Unfortunately, I didn't start taking notes for this when I was reading this because I didn't decide to do the podcast until I was probably halfway into this book. But I went and read the plot summary and kind of was able to recall enough to get us through this. So this takes place after The Last Jedi. And if you remember, The Last Jedi leaves the Resistance in a pretty awful spot. Basically everyone's dead. The Resistance is pretty much who's all on the Falcon at that point. So you have Poe, Finn, Rey, Leia, Chewie. I think Nub's there, and the officer who's played by Carrie Fisher's daughter, I think, is on the ship as well. And that's basically it. The Resistance is like 10 people, not even. Oh, and also Rose. So the Resistance is in a pretty poor spot at this point. Poe goes to join Black Squadron, who are our other remaining members of the Resistance at that point. You got 3 other pilots, and they liberate a planet from First Order control, and they're basically at this point trying to get any support they can possibly muster for the Resistance, but the governor pretty much like, thanks for your help, we're good, I don't want to deal with this. So they all leave dejected, and we cut back to the Falcon, which has Leia and Chewie and Rey trying to deal with the fact that they don't have much fuel left. They basically have enough for one jump, and they can't get any First Order involvement, otherwise they're basically all screwed. So they pull a gamble and just decide to jump to Ryloth, which is the Twilight home planet. It's seeming like the new canon is having a huge love for Ryloth. We're going there almost every book I've read, really. Lords of the Sith, the Aftermath trilogy has some Ryloth moments, I believe, as well. Lost Stars has some Ryloth moments, I'm pretty sure. Bloodlines definitely does. Like, everyone, we're always going back to Ryloth. I mean, it's cool. It's nice that we've seen it fleshed out so much. But, what about Rhodia or Mon Cala or any of those other cool, like, iconic species homeworlds that we could decide to visit? I feel like we should kind of flesh it out a little bit, but regardless, we're going back to Ryloth. And we are greeted by Yendor, who is now a pretty prominent member of the Ryloth government, and they have a, like, underground sanctioned freedom fighter force, like militia force that we're allowed to stay with for a while. So while we're doing this, Snap Wexley, who is kind of it's pretty important in the books, but hasn't really, I don't think he's had screen time, but I don't think he's ever been mentioned by name in the movies. He's going to go find his mom, who is now married to Wedge, so to try and get them back in the fight. If you read Aftermath, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, basically Aftermath is the story of him and his mom, and then Wedge later. So good set of books that leads us into episode 7. But if you're gonna be pretty lost for a lot of this if you haven't at least read the first 1 or 2 of them. But then we also have another character. His name's Wincher, and he's more or less a paper pusher on Corellia. There's some big First Order shipyards, and he is a records officer and really high and snooty on himself, thinking he's the absolute shit when he's just a loser. But at one point, he's just trying to climb the ranks and prove to everyone that he is the best around. He's been given the task to more or less hide political prisoners in their prison camps and in their labor camps. And that's going to obviously come into play later. We also have Poe, who's going to go try and get Maz Kanata involved. So she lived through her castle being shot down in episode 7, which we all knew. There were even deleted scenes with her like using the Force outside it after it collapsed. But she's on like a spa planet, and she's like, nope, have fun. I'm not going to get involved with this. If she does decide to help us out later when she sends us some information to go to an auction full of potential prisoners of the First Order, because as we're going through the novel, we're constantly trying to contact allies and no one's answering because the First Order has a list of people that they think might be sympathetic to the cause, and they're either hunting them down, killing them, or putting them in prison. So everyone's either gone, killed, or too afraid to reach out at this point. But we later find out there was a list of all these people. So our Resistance allies all gather on Ryloth. We have Black Squadron and Leia, and we've gathered a few other folks that Wedge helped bring in. And this includes General Riken, of all people. So knowing the movies so far, I imagine we're going to get like a war room kind of thing, like on Hoth or something like that, or Yavin, and he's just going to be in the background. He's never going to be mentioned, but you're just going to see him there. That's all I really expect for a lot of these characters, which is kind of disappointing for the people that do take the time. I mean, you don't have to like say, oh yeah, here's the general, okay, we're all good, everyone remember who he is, let's keep going. You can just, say, all right, let's have General Riken giving us a briefing on our next mission or whatever. But it's cool nonetheless. Hopefully we'll see the original. It'd be cool to see the original actor in there if he does come back. But so we then split up into some teams to go on some missions. We have a group of a ragtag bunch heading to Braca, which is the planet that we start on with Fallen Order, where the scrapper planet that Cal starts on. They're going to go try and steal some starfighters. We have a team including Finn and Poe that are going to go try and get the list auction that is auctioned off with all the prisoners. And we have another group with Nora and Wedge that's in Snap that are going to go try and steal away some prisoners. So, to make it quick, the Braca team takes some heavy shots and we lose a few people, but they steal a good chunk of starships. Then we have the auction group with Finn and Poe. They get like half of the Resistance money stolen, more or less, and then the auction gets raided by the First Order, but they escape with the auction holder, who is sympathetic to them with the list of people. Then the other group is trying to find a certain character that's Ransom Casterfo, who, if you've read Bloodlines, he was a senator in the New Republic that Leia teams up with. He has a sort of reverence for the Imperial military, not so much the Empire itself. He was negatively affected by it, but they're kind of set out as foils in the book, but he ends up taken as prisoner, blamed for a crime that he did not commit, and then is left to disappear. But it turns out he was in a First Order camp for a long, long time. Bloodlines is not too far after episode 6, and this is much farther in the timeline. So they're going to go try and find him, because he could potentially be a good asset to the Resistance. So the Corellian teams, they're fighting. They end up teaming up with someone who, Wincher, our paper pusher, it's like one of his assistants who he hates for no reason, but she's like incredibly capable and has like an eidetic memory, which is more or less a enhanced photographic memory. So they go and find Ransom. They break him out. They're like, hey, yo, Leia's here for you. We're going to go take you home. While this is happening, the First Order also finds the Ryloth encampment. So they're trying to blast their way out and get out of there and escape. So they've lost their base, which is the only place they really had to go. But Yendor joins with us, so he's also in on the fight. Then the two Corellian teams meet up. We have the lady who gave the auction, and she promised to give them the list in return for her safety. And we also had the Prison Break team who helped free Ransom as well as a few unnamed prisoners to boot. And they're like, all right, we need to get out of here, but one of our ships got locked down, so they go to the shipyards and steal a blockade runner. Wedge gets shot in the shoulder, and we're left to think he is left for dead, but they blast a hole in a wall and basically bust him out of this dead-end hallway. And he hops on the blockade runner, and they all fly away. So we have basically everyone. We have our group is expanded a little bit to include Riken and Yendor and Nora and Wedge and our few other Black Squadron and members, as well as the daughter of Iden Versio with Inferno Squadron from Battlefront 2. So our heroes are left without a base, but they decide to partner with the auction holder. She's a member of like an underground kind of criminal organization, sort of like think Anonymous almost in a way. But they pay her the rest of the money to get to stay in a safe house. And that is where we're left. So it's, again, kind of just setting up where the state of the Resistance, their resources, their people, to launch into Episode 9. No real story spoilers or big moments. Rey basically was non-existent in this book. Like, she doesn't go on any mission, she just chills with Leia and says a few lines of dialogue, which, I don't know, it's something hard for me. This is the first book that I've read that has a lot of these movie characters from the sequels, and a lot of their dialogue, especially for Rey, just didn't seem natural for that character. But a few other small details I pulled out of this. So yeah, we'll have Riken probably. Wedge and Nora decide to leave. They're like, we're not cut out for this life anymore. So unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna see him. They have that blockade runner. They have some more starfighters. But we also had a few small details on relationships between our characters. Finn and Poe are talking for a little bit. And Finn's like, yeah, Rose and I, we just got caught up in the moment on Crate. We're not a couple. So for the people that care, that's gone. He also says that him and Rey are just friends. We'll see about that. I'm not as convinced. It could still go either way. But there's a lot of moments that lead me to believe the Poe and Finn shippers might be right. They definitely have some kind of almost tender moments, like Poe teaching Finn how to tie a tie, and just saying like saying how good they look because they're like dressing up for this auction. I don't care either way. I think they have a really solid bromance, but I feel like this book is hinting towards something more than that. So we'll see if that gets fleshed out at all in Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, I think that's where it leaves us for now. I don't have too much else to talk about. Next week, we will have Chapter 4 of The Mandalorian. I definitely will not have Jedi Fallen Order finished by then, but hopefully I'll be a little farther. Maybe I'll give like an insight on how far I am at that point, just because I don't have anything else to talk about. The only problem is this weekend is also Thanksgiving, and I will be out of town, so my recording abilities are going to be kind of gone. Depending on when I get back, we might have to release the podcast late instead of Monday. It could be Tuesday or Wednesday, but I will definitely try and have an episode out that week. But anyways, thanks for listening. A special thanks to Graham Bull for providing the theme song. And as always, may the Force be with you.